question is, obviously the police has responsibility to address issues, and crime is one of them. And the police is part of the community. When things are not working or when there are issues, police tries as much as possible to deal with that along with other actors within the community. But the communication around what the police is doing and how that communication may affect the communities that are involved in whatever issue. Specifically here, we're talking about crime and the way it's been communicated with regards to African and Sudanese, Sudanese and Somali groups, and that relates to the whole of African. What are your perspective in how we've come to this situation where there's quite a bit of blame being placed on the police in the manner that it is communicating with the community?
Well, yeah, I can kick it off, and that leads to numerous things that we could talk about, and I'm happy to talk about. Just listening to the three previous speakers, there's a couple of important things. Statistics are dangerous, regardless of the raw numbers, the way statistics can be interpreted in any manner, and I'm not a statistician, but the way they can be interpreted can be very risky. So that's the first thing that I'd like to say, and I'm aware, dealing with our own statistics about a multitude of things, theft of cars and all sorts of things that we deal with, that we've got to be very careful about the way we interpret them. That's the first point. Perhaps, I guess, more importantly and more philosophically in terms of community benefit, I listened with great interest about two things there. One was education, and the other was about taking control of one's own destiny to a degree. Mm-hmm. And that is what we see in any community is people that are undereducated or less than desirably educated struggle with employment. Now, the education doesn't need to be academia, it can be vocational. And I think there's sometimes there's a misrepresentation there that just because people don't have an academic education, that they're different from others. There's a multitude of other skills that are useful to the community in a vocational manner, such as trades and things, and they should be pursued to open up additional employment opportunities. There's an old saying that a lot of you would have heard that, idle hands are the devil's worship, and people that are disengaged here through lack of education, can't get a job, can lead to difficulties in any community. The final point there, the final point was about education and about the community working together. So yes, Victoria Police has got an obligation and responsibility to the people of Victoria. Fundamentally, we all know historically, policing is about preserving the peace, preventing and detecting crimes that are committed, etc. That's the fundamental role. In the modern society, there's more to it than that. There's a lot of community engagement. And there's a lot of help and assistance, but the fundamental role still is about enforcement of the law of the land. So whilst we have numerous programs, of which I'll pass on to one of my colleagues in a moment to talk about, we are potentially going to be in conflict with groups, regardless of race, gender or anything else, because the nature of our work. Unfortunately, we detect people who commit crimes, and that can often cause conflict regardless of who they are. We often have parents saying, why are you picking on my child? Well, the fact is, if the child commits offences and they're detected, well, that's an unfortunate reality. That's the nature of our job. So I'll leave it at that for now, perhaps.
Well, good afternoon first. It is an excellent opportunity, and I'd like to thank Clyde and the other who attended and organized it, which I know it is a hard work to get everyone and to address. And I can see the interest also that expresses we have a deep concern on what happened. What I say is, unfortunately, we are repeating the same mistakes over and over and over. We are not learning from our mistakes. Back just a few years back, 2007, with Kevin Andrews' comment, we moved to zero. And we started to crawl back to get confidence and trust. And unfortunately, we got back to zero. Then the question comes, and always, if there is no trust between individuals, between institution and the community, everything breaks. Now, what happened, as the video Clyde recorded with Tim Cartwright and myself, I've spoken to him, he apologized. But really, let's come. If I would have made this mistake, I would have been in jail. If anyone. So the community need to see some action. If someone makes mistakes, not only we make a mistake and get action on it. We need to see, because we need to build trust. Every mistake has to be recorded and accounted. If we just got to put it in the bin, so let's learn, to be honest with you, this took us back to zero. Whatever we've been working with police, it brought us to mistrust. And the mistrust causes so much, well, I agree there is a problem in the media or whatever, but there is something that we don't control. Media in this country, whatever we will say here, we don't have any stake in it. They will sell the papers tomorrow, so they need to find a topic that sells the papers. And we're not going to tell them that you do the positive or don't do the negative or whatever. They will do it whether we like it or not. But what is important is, if I say it has got no value to a bigger picture, but if someone in authority say it, has got much more meaning. And we need to be accountable in leadership. Unfortunately, we're seen in this problem rather than who made the mistake. Who is to be accountable on this question is not the community that struggling to walk.
And if I may ask, what sort of action would you like to
Well,
see?
the police system has got its own system of disciplining within the system, and they should show the community. Mistake has been made, and the mistake needs action. Yes, we have got a problem, and no doubt, not only we as new arrivals in this country, even the people who've been here 100 years, they've got every Saturday problem in King Street, fighting and doing everything that is unimaginable. So does it mean that our color makes problem? No. Does it make that we are new, we're making problem? No. This is human nature. We all learn, and especially young people, not because they are Africans or not because they are from Africa or they came here new. No, it is a question of disengagement. And as a society, we all have responsibility. Police probably gets the problem at the end of the stick, but we all as a society, we have got a problem. Just a few months or a year ago now, we've been crying because of a young man we lost. We don't know what happened to that young boy. And still asking the question and no answer for it. So how do we build trust when there is no openness from the other side? So for me as a community, what we need is, in such dramatic actions coming through the media is not going to apologize. They need for next day article. But what we need is, as community, is the people responsible has to come and say, yes, this has been wrong, and has to be acknowledged in the proper public, rather than privately recorded for us. I can hear what I want to hear. But the problem for us is the mainstream. The mainstream in employment opportunity, because once this stereotype goes out there, oh, these criminals, how can we employ them? That comes a name for any black man walking on the street. So how do we compensate these people to get opportunity as dishwashers in a restaurant or whatever to study and work? That stereotype with one name in the street comes to everyone lose their job or lack an opportunity to move into the stream. In education, there are many stories that we don't get it in the stream. Young kids at school, repercussions of all this stereotype happening on the media and the street for us. What happened to our kids at school? It's much more dramatic. And no one has ever done a study. We can go and ask these little kids at school, what is, after a media report on the TV or screen of anyone watching it the next day, the kids pay the price. These are little kids. For their age, it's too much problem.
Okay.
So do we give them that a journey to the future? I think the solution is in our hand. We either work and give opportunity, and we get the best leaders as business leaders, as sport leaders, or whatever, in the mainstream in the city. Or we've got a choice to treat them badly and create more criminals. We all pay for it. So a choice is in our hand. How we deal with it is investing in the proper way, and anyone doing something wrong, we have to show the community action is taken and the process has taken its way in acknowledging what has been done. But to tell us just in a secret way, yes, it's been done, sorry, acknowledge it, where we have to pass it. I think in a fairness, that will not settle well in the community who wait for justice. And there are many people feeling that injustice in this community. If you go to a taxi driver, you will get it. If you go in the community within families, within individuals, you find that injustice happen to them every day, but they don't have anyone to talk to because the authorities are the ones to make the judgment and are the ones to make the mistakes. So who do you go and ask for?
Thanks,
I'm sorry if I say so much.
As I said, we're going to be going to the second part of this forum, but before we do, this first part, we've pretty much heard people talk about these issues. I guess we need to be able to pinpoint. I think that this word has been used by a few people here. What are the issues exactly? We need to ask the right questions to identify the problems, and then we'll take some time to look into what can be done, how we can work together as community, including the police, because they're part of the community, how we can start taking action in trying to solve these issues.
Statistics about crime, and we've heard some arguments about whether they're accurate, but something that I hear a lot from people and that accords with my experience is there's also the statistics about people being stopped and searched and so on in the street. And I have people come into my office and who will say, I'm sorry I'm late, but I got stopped by the police on the way here and they asked me questions and so on. I'm just wondering if there's any hard information or data from people who work in here about whether there's also supposedly disproportionate, people are being stopped and searched because, or questioned or whatever because of the colour of their skin, and whether that is contributing as well. I'd just like to hear from people about that.
Okay. Yeah, that's one question, and I'll just follow up on that and then take actually a number of questions so that when we come back, we're trying to discuss how to move forward and look at the strategies to address these. People will have these questions in mind. Yeah.
You mentioned there is a lot of opportunities coming up. If we remember back maybe a year or 6 months ago, there is one African guy from Sudan background. He lodged about 1,000 letter or application to get a job. Because of his name, he didn't get even one invitation or one call to get interviewed. Then he changed his name to English background. Out of 6 applications, he got a call of 5 out of 6. Out of 1,000, nil, because his name is African. Doesn't matter his qualification or not. He copied as it is his qualification. So those type of problem is aware by authorities. What the authority done about those rejection? Did they follow up? Did they done anything to correct those type of mistake in the community? Because we are African, we contribute the same taxpayers, we got the same qualification. Most of the kids now 20, 27 years, grown up in Australia, learning Australian institute, college, all those things. That is what the government has to follow up. The other thing about criminal, what do you call it, the statics, which I don't believe. If I'll give you one example, maybe.
Is that still a question, or are you making a comment now?
Question. One African guy from Somali background who was being convicted for a crime, went to jail for 7 years. But that kid was 18 years old. He never been to that area. That area is a nightclub which was being admitting over 28. Because of no evidence, just only on DNA, which was being contaminated DNA at the last, he went to jail. His family suffered, he suffered. Everybody lost confidence on law. Those people who charged him, did they get any, no punishment, at least warning not to do those things improperly?
All right.
And there's a lot can ask.
I did have this question before, but I just needed to be asked again. Do people commit crime because of their nationality or where they came from? And also, if crime are recorded according to their nationalities, we need to see the other communities.
Okay. Yeah.
My question specifically relates to statistics, as I've said. We know very well that anything that is reported in the media actually does paint a picture of certain groups of people. When we report statistics about a group of a community, we are telling the wider community that these people are like that. So I want to know, why was there a difference between the crime rate in the wider community reported when the police were talking about the African community? Why are they different when they talk about crime rates among the wider community in the general context? Why are these two different? Why is it 1,300 when talking about Africans, and then 7,020 when talking about the wider community? I want to know why this difference was there.
Okay. Yes, please. Another question there. Yeah.
Hey, I just want to know, like, why is it that because of, you know, an individual, like just a small group, that the wider community has to take the blame for, you know? Like, why is it, you know, that because, you know, a few Somali people or like a couple of, you know, Sudanese Greek boys kind of do something, but then it's like the wider community that has to take the blame, so the negatives are on them. So why is it that the wider community should take the blame for minors, you know?
Because employment depends on profiles, on records. And most of these boys that we are all concerned, they're not going to go anywhere with these criminal reports that they have. So to get them moving from the system of where they are now, they're shackled. So how do we break the shackle? It's important either from legislative point of view or the judiciaries or whatever system. We need to look into that because they're not moving, they're not going to get any opportunity, let alone having a crime. An African is not getting a job.
All right.
So for that reason, I bet we also need to think ourselves now. What can we do as a communities to help ourselves and our boys? Because it's easy to blame others, but we are also not taking leadership in our own self. How do we take that? How do we do? How do we support each other and help the helpless?
All right. Two more questions, and then we'll have to pray. Yes, I'll come back in you after that. Please.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge that, yes, there are some police that actually are racial profiling, but we have to acknowledge that there are some that also help the communities and want to help them to get through the struggles and things like that. And that's why we have some people sitting here trying to, you know, help us with the issues. But my question is, we know that our communities as Sunnis or Somalians, coming from, as you said, dictatorship to some governments, they have those kind of fears that are inside them when it comes to police or any person, someone in government. You know, even when you're sitting there, you're not carrying a gun, you don't carry a gun, but there will be a fear, or maybe he'll do something, he'll arrest us. So there are some kind of fears that our parents or our grandparents will carry on with them. So my question is, what things can we do, or the police or the government can do to help overcome those fears? And if there are things to do, are they being done, or would they be would they come about it? Yeah. And also, when they do come about it, or they are, can they have some kind of focus groups to actually help out those crime, work with those communities to help, you know, decrease the crime rates? So the question is, the main problem is the actual fear that is within our communities. Can that be overcome?
All right.